Okay, morning everybody. Mike O'Neill speaking. Very welcome to today's Tips and Tricks webinar. We expect to be around 30 to 40 minutes depending on audience participation. There's usually some shenanigans at the beginning of these meetings, so if you're reading the screen now, people who are probably furiously stamping on their laptop saying I can't hear anything, that's because you haven't connected to the audio. So just in case there's something happening out there, and that's a polite reminder. So just as people are beginning to find that button, we'll move on to our next slide. One thing that you might notice in this particular presentation today is we've all turned blue. Usually you see us turning up in green, so today we're in blue. You probably know already at the beginning of this year we now changed our brand to Hexagon Manufacturing Intelligence. So yeah, it's really just a name change, an email address change, but maybe more importantly our corporate management now through Hexagon Manufacturing Intelligence. So this is obviously great news for us. Obviously we're now going to build up in respect to our development and how far and how much we touch the rest of the world. Okay, so again I can just see somebody talking about a message coming in saying this still can't hear you. Well, again, we are monitoring today's presentation on a slave PC. It's coming through loud and clear there, so whoever is got a problem, then again I would ask you to just click the audio control panel. Okay, so let's move on. Lots of nice ideas in today's presentation, and our first idea, our first area is to talk about the physical toolpath inside Edgecam. So clearly, you know, as Edgecam users, we're used to using roughing, profiling, slotting, all the cycles, but we're going to talk about how to get extra control over there. And one of the most important ones is, and again, obviously a time-saving idea, is to use the transform, rotate, mirror commands. But people do talk about having some spurious moves when they use these commands. So David will show us how to remove them problems. Also, what we have is using waveform. Obviously, very popular cycle. I'd say that 99% maybe of our customers should now be using waveform. But again, I want to determine the starting position, so we'll show you that. And along the way, we're going to just use some more ad hoc tips and tricks with the flyout menu and using IntelliStat. And again, as Dave executes the presentation, you'll see that. And so moving forward, we're then going to have a look at inside the dialog boxes themselves, setting up a formula. This can be extremely useful, you know, if you just want to metricate something or calculate a feed and speed. Picking up a global modifier variable inside Edgecam and manipulating that variable. As we're going to obviously check our toolpath, we're then going to move into the machine simulator. So don't forget that, you know, for a speedy result, you can use the rapid result software. And as we're down inside the machine simulator, what we can do is look at the view comparison command. It's very nice to use view comparison to get a good idea where leftover material is. And in doing that, we'll look at the options menu. So with options menu, we can look at the output, we can check where we are positionally in the Z-axis, and also to very quickly come out of the machine simulator, there's a setting you can use called Quit on Close. In fact, there are many settings inside that options area, another one being over travel. And obviously over travel is connected to the post-processor, so on the final demonstration today, we'll talk about the post-processor, we'll talk about the limits and the kinematics down inside the post-processor. So, some very interesting items to be looking forward to. David's now going to open up Edgecam, and we're going to start talking about our first demonstration. Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks Mike. Morning guys, morning everyone. Hope you're all well. Yeah, so we're just going to start by looking at some toolpath manipulation. So if I just switch the machine off a little bit here, just to see more clearly. Yeah, so in this sequence list we've used the translate machining function, which like Mike says, nice time saver. rather than repeating the process for each component. And one of the support calls we get on a quite a regular basis is, yeah, all looks good, but we've got these big retracts every time, I need to get rid of them. Well, it's quite a simple one. What you've got to remember is Edgecam is doing what you've asked it to do. It is repeating this first tool path, which does start at the tool change position. So you can see that all that tool path is one. So the simple way around it is to shorten the tool path. Basically, all I'm going to do is insert a rapid move. Okay, so I could click on the coordinate input and type in the values. Alternatively, what you can do is just type X on the computer keyboard, 0Y, 0Z, say 50, and this little window, the enter coordinates window, opens automatically. I can then just say OK. You get the little yellow preview dot there. Accept that, and you now see the toolpath's going to start from this point. So let's just remove the insert. Toolpath's updated. You see now we're starting closer to the component. So that is the toolpath that is translated. So that gets rid of many of the problem moves, the excessive Z moves. Oh, what I could also do, so I just kind of guessed the start point there with the X, Y, Z coordinates. What I could do is use the original toolpath also, you know. So I could go back into the rapid move, just going to re-pick the geometry, and what I'll do this time is use this toolpath. So I've got two options. I can hold the control key down, or I can click on entity. See in the bottom right hand corner there, you can click on entity, this becomes active. Or alternatively, just hold the control key down, pick the toolpath on the rapid move there, and you'll see this black dot appears. So that's now where this toolpath is going to start. So where's it got that information from is within the cycle. Just open it up here, and got the depth tab. You see my clearance is set to 20 mil above the stock, so that's where that start point is being created. So that's doing it for us automatically, saving the inputs again and trying to work out coordinates. So that's quite a useful little feature. Okay, so I'm just going to hide these toolpaths now, the face milling, and concentrate on waveform. So waveform, obviously great cycle. If I simulate this, you see the part is, or the tool is starting at the front of the component, going towards the back. That may be okay in many circumstances, that's fine, but you know, that's going to throw a swath at the window of the machine, you know, obviously going to damage it over time. And there may be many other reasons where you want to start at the back of the component and work forward. So how do you do that? I mean, waveform just tends to start where it wants to start, you know, you don't seem to have any control over it, but on open mill features like this, you can control it. So what I'm going to do again is insert a rapid move above the roughing. So I'm going to insert a rapid move, and this time I want to insert it over the back of the component. Now again, I've got no idea of the size of this component, so I'd have to guess coordinates, but what I can do is use this option here in the top of the screen there, reference input. So if I click on there, I can then pick a reference point. So I could pick the midpoint, the end point, you know, wherever you would like. Or you could, by right mouse click, you get the little fly out window here, and I can then decide whether I want the center of the circle, or in this case the midpoint of this line, to be my reference. As soon as I've clicked on that, you get the similar box enter coordinates in there. Or did I do that correctly? Maybe let me do that again. Reference input, midpoint, pick the line, and yeah, reference. We've got the enter coordinates, so it's going to be x0, y 20, and in this case, let's go z50 again. So, but them coordinates are taken from my reference point. So if I accept that, you see the tool is now going to start at the back of the part. Remove the insert, let the roughing recalculate, and as you can see, to simulate that now, the tool starts at the back. So with an open mill feature like this, if you position the tool to either end of the slot, that is where it will start doing the roughing cycle from. So you do have some control over the start position. Okay, so let's stop that simulation. There's my mouse. Okay, So next thing we're going to look at is using formula within the dialogue. So I'll do this in the roughing cycle. I think we all should be aware that I can add simple formula, just put a 5 divided by 2, whatever, some mathematical formula in there. But what if you want to reference another parameter within the cycle? So I want to make the Z offset relative to the XY offset. So to do that, what you can do is type in the word command dot, the full stop mark, and then you'll get a list of all the other fields within the roughing cycle. So I'm going to look for the XY offset, which is here. Double click on it. It's then input into the relevant field, and I'm just going to say divided by 5. Come out of that box, and you see now these two are now linked. And because this is highlighted with the blue box, I know that this is using the command. So let's do it again. In this one here, command dot, and this time Z offset I'm going to use. So double click on the Z offset, maybe divide that by 2, click out of the box. Now all these 3 fields are linked. So if I change the first one, you'll see the others change accordingly to and relative to this first one. So let's take that back to 0.5, let it calculate, and yeah, so it's another little time saving whereby we can keep everything relative to other options within the cycle. Okay, so next thing Mike talked about was the simulator. On a simple part like this, you maybe just want to run a very quick simulation, or even on the bigger parts where it does take longer. Don't forget you do have the option for rapid result. So this is a much faster way of simulating. Maybe it's not quite as accurate, but it's certainly a lot quicker. So if we say clear, see how quick that toolpath actually cleared through there. So much faster. We've got a comparison tool in there, so if I click on the comparison, you can see where the material is being left on. Blue is obviously excess material, and green is not. So let's rewind that, run that again. And the other option that Mike showed was checking your Z level depth. And now to do this, you need to have the output window. So sometimes when you come in the simulator, you may be missing some of the windows. Don't forget you can right click in the top area here and switch on the options. And in the output window, you've got an a little tab there called pick. If I go there and then pick on the bottom of that slot, you'll see it does measure the height in Z. So it's going 19.9, the target depth is 20, so it's got 0.1 of material on there. If I click on the top face, you see that's 0, 0, so I know that is finished. So just a quick way of checking the Z levels. Okay, so if I quit this, quit the simulator now, and then go back in, you'll see that the tool has stopped in the same place. So that allows me to add extra toolpaths and start from where I have simulated to previously, which is great. But sometimes you might want it to rewind back to the beginning. So again, a little shortcut will be to hold the control key down and quit. And then if I go back into the simulator, you'll see that it has rewound back to the beginning. So that could previously be done within the options, quit on close. But the problem with that is that it always does it. So what we tend to do now is leave that switched off and just hold the control key down when we do want to rewind it back to the beginning. Okay, so I think that ends the first part of the demonstration. I'll pass back to Michael.
Okay, yeah, thanks Dave. Just before we leave the simulator, a couple of questions coming in. One question was about cross-sectioning. Yeah, we can cross-section in the simulator. What you'll do is, at the moment, Dave is inside Rapid Result. If we just come back to Machine Simulator and do a click here, this is where you'll get your sectional view. And then through sectional view, you'll obviously get your sections. So that's a machine simulator, not Rapid Result. And the other item was, and it's good to see that you're all listening, so when David did the, in fact any dialog box, what we've got the possibility to do is obviously the formulas. And someone just mentioned the fact that you can do just normal BODMAS, which is absolutely true. But how do I get the result inside there? You know, when I walk away, there you go. So you'll see now it actually puts the value in there. We'll just go to this, make up some numbers here, divide 8, and then come away. It will actually resolve the number for you. You used to be able to do control and equals on the keyboard, and that would be another way of giving us that particular number. So anyway, you have, if you will, maths. We'll just do another one in here. I'm very good at doing divide. You'll see how it resolves that number for us. Okay, so thanks for those questions. So obviously, if you miss any questions that we can't answer on the webinar itself, obviously it's been typed into the chat window, and we'll be able to read these questions and respond to you formally through email. So moving on, everything we do is obviously based around the post-processor, and the post-processor for us is obviously the code wizard. So when we move into manufacturing, we're initially asked about the post-processor, and we set that part down on top of the machine tool table. If we get the position wrong, then that can cause override limits. So one of the items that David mentioned inside the machine simulator was the possibility of checking the override limit. So we'll have a look at not only the machine parameters and how to move the part around on the table. We'll have a quick delve inside the code wizard as well, because obviously it's a very, very important relationship between CAM and the code wizard. And again, as we're working through a particular exercise, regardless of whether it's the profiling or the slotting cycle or whatever it may be, it's always very nice to be able to customize the interface. So rather than always having, for instance, climb mill set and having to remember to set climb mill, we can, if you will, hardwire the dialogue to always hang on to the fact that I want a climb mill. And indeed, don't ask me about climb mill, remove it, just always have it hardwired in the background. So we can actually create our own masks, our own, if you will, customized dialogues that suit our particular methods. A general one, when we do enter, again, any dialog box, Edgecam is modal, but some settings are actually reset back to, if you will, the factory setting. So you as the user going through the preferences setting, that's the screenshot that you see now, you're able to set every single value that you see inside Edgecam to a particular setting. And again, we'll see that very shortly. The actual exercise that David's delving into, the reason for machining, is going to drill some holes. But again, this will take us into the feature finder. It will make us discuss the explode command and being able to work around the machine tool limits. Okay, so some nice stuff set up there. I'll just let David jump over to his next file, and then we'll carry on. All right then, thank you, David.
Cheers, Mike. Yeah, so just a simple example of a typical component, really. We've brought it in, we've set it up, and it's aligned the component on the machine automatically, if you like, on the centre of the table. From looking from the side view, you can see clearly that the part's basically too big for the machine, and I need to adjust the position of it on the machine. So what we're going to do is, on the machining tab, we can do this inside the machine parameters. Just open this up. Machine parameters, you can see this is being positioned automatically. So we'll switch the automatic up. We can move this around on the table any which way we like to get the position that's more suitable. So again, looking from the side view now, we've moved this nicely forward, all good to go, ready to machine. Now, quite obviously, it's not going to get to all these holes, but if I go to my features tab, you see all these holes are one feature at the moment. So let's just machine feature, see what happens. I'm going to say rough and finish. I'm going to pick the feature, accept it, and it will bring in the drill and drill it and start tapping and all the rest of it. Now, as you can see in the feedback window, we're getting a message y-axis is out of limit, which is great. It's quite obvious on this machine, but on this example, but that might only be a few millimeters on other examples, so it's useful to have that option switched on in the preferences. So if I just go into the preferences, show you where this is at. On the toolpath tab of the preferences, you've got the option here, check linear limits. Personally, I think you should always have that switched on. You know, it's always going to give you a warning if you are travelling out of limit. So, nice one to have switched on. So yeah, we've still got this problem now, though. We've still got to machine this part, and obviously we're going to have to split the group of holes up into two maybe and do it in two operations. So one of the problems I might be a little bit unfamiliar with this machine and not really sure which holes I can get to, which holes I can't get to. So if I just switch the guards off, we might be able to see this a little bit better. Inside this post-processor, you may have seen a little shadow in there where I've got this box. And this box is, I think it's inside the post, but it's defining the limits in the X and the Y axis of that machine. So if I go into CodeWiz, and I'll show you how this is being created in CodeWiz. Same machine, obviously. You scroll down. This is the box. It's a solid model, just the A cuboid, nothing fancy, but just positioned around the zero to define the limits. And I've made it translucent so you can see through it. If I switch that back to solid, you can see that's all it is. It's a solid block. Set it to translucent so it comes through into Edgecam as wireframe basically. Importantly is to knock the collision check off. If you don't do that, then we're always going to be in collision, obviously. And if you don't want it, you can always knock it off at a later date. You know, switch it off the visibility on and off in here as well if you don't want it in there. But I find it quite useful sometimes when you're not sure how big how extreme the limits are. Sometimes the table's a lot bigger than the actual limits of the machine, so this is quite a useful way of finding the limits. So back in the Edgecam, I now need to split this the features into two different groups. So moving to the features tab, you can see at the moment it's all one group. So yeah, I could delete it and then start picking features, picking the holes again. But what you can also do is go to the setup and explode a feature. So which feature do you want to explode? So these holes, accept that. You could put on different layers and what have you. Go back to my features now, you see we've got all these individual holes now. This is the original one. They've still got that group in there, so I could delete that if you want to. It doesn't make much difference. But if I then go back to the machining tab and go back to my sequence, you see all these cycles have turned red. That's because I've deleted a feature. And that's another quite a common support call is, you know, why is these cycles not calculated anymore? You may have accidentally or just not realised you have deleted the feature that's being used within that cycle. Okay, so if I want to now pick them, I'm just going to delete all this for speed and we'll just look at the drilling cycle. But if I want to now go and pick each individual feature, that's again quite a lot of picks to make. So what we can do is group the whole fixtures. So if we go into here, create a group. There's back holes. Okay, select the holes. So this time we'll go to the plan view. I need to pick the holes that I can get to in that within the limits. And where's my limits at now? I'm not sure. So if I go back to my machine tree, click on that solid that's showing the limits, that then guides me again. So I can now pick the limits, I'll pick the holes within the limits, accept, and that has now, go back to my features, that has now created this group of holes. So that's great. I know I can get to all them holes within the current setup. So now all I need to do is go back into my drilling cycle, re-pick the holes. Just another little tip, you may be aware of the reset all picks option or icon. It's quite useful. That just clears the buffer of any current picks. So if I just click on there, clears everything, and that allows me to drop back in and just pick all the options again. That should. Did I miss that? I don't think I picked it correctly there. That's better. Okay. So you can see now we've got the tool path as required within the limits of the machine. So it's still showing me a limit exceeded here. That's because I should have really cleared this area. And again, if I regenerate now, you'll see we don't get any message, so I know all's good. I'm within the limits of the machine. Okay, so right, let's move on to the next topic. And I just want to look at the profiling cycle. So I'm just going to hide the roughing, get that out of the way. So yeah, profiling cycle. In this cycle, I've got it set up so the lead in and lead out is defined by tick, which is nice. So I can tick exactly where I want the lead in and lead out to be. So again, I'm just going to reset all ticks. Okay, select the feature, no boundary. So now I'm prompted, we'll set the plan view there, I'm prompted to set the start point anywhere I want. So I can just click on the start position and move it, which is good. And then I click on the end position. Now sometimes this can be a bit of a pain because you can't get them to line up correctly or whatever. So the shortcut or the trick to get around that is to, again, to either use the entity option down in the bottom right of the screen, or control key, click on the start and end position, and then you see they become one. So I can now move them around as one, and then accept it, and I know that they're exactly in the right place on top of each other. So it's like a lot easier. Okay, so moving on again, we now want to talk about customizing the interface and setting the defaults more to what you want to see rather than what we've given you. So a simple way of doing this is to use the modality. So if we go into the preferences and use this option here, customize mode. So it's on the general tab, customize mode. I'm making that active, yeah? Okay. So if I now, let's just delete some of this. Okay, so if I now create a profile cycle, one of probably the most common one we hear of is I want the compensation always to set to geometry, but it keeps coming in as none, so I've always got to pick it as geometry, which is it's a bit of a pain at times. So let's just give it some V's and speeds there. So if I say OK now, rather than being asked to go and pick the features or the geometry, you'll see this window pop up, which looks a little bit different. But in here you can tell it which fields you want to be modal or non-modal. So the compensation, for example, I do have it set to modal, but I believe as a standard installation that would come in as non-modal. So say the modal, and then the previous entry should be picked up the next time you use it. So we say OK to that, and then you can go and pick your features and do everything you need to do within the cycle. Now one thing you have to remember to do is switch that customize mode off. Otherwise it keeps popping up all the time. Got a bit of a dwell going on there for some reason.
Okay, so just as what we're watching at the moment is the cycle deliberately now going into not so much a lockdown, but David's requested the cycle to do something that's kind of a little bit above and beyond what's actually necessary. Now, this obviously we've done something deliberately, so don't worry if your screen's gone blank. What we did in the meantime, we've opened up our task manager, and inside the task manager you can see edgecam. Now this is a really handy tip, which means that we did plan it. When a cycle goes into lockdown, normally what you have to do, or normally what you might do in your frustration, is kill off Edgecam. Well, you don't have to actually do that. All you need to do is now go to edgecam, which is in the task manager, right-click it, and say end that task. And what we're actually doing, end the process. And what we're actually doing is we're unlocking the cycle. So the cycle at the moment, as I say, is probably doing too much tolerancing or doing too much whatever it is. Rather than you quit and completely lose your part, go into the task manager, and Edgecam is actually now running the machining. The actual Edgecam will always subcontract the thinking or the machining outside itself. So if you ever look for edserve.exe and kill it, it's a very, very good way of quitting the command without losing your workpiece. Now, for those of you who are working in 5-axis, you'll see edserve5.exe, and that is the 5-axis cycle which is actually running. So we thought we'd include that today, simply because we do know that some people will lock out a cycle without turning on background processing. That's something else we've spoken about in the previous webinars. So a nice, very, very good way of saving your workpiece. Don't forget, you should always have auto save on there. You can just see that on Dave's panel at the moment. It's got his set at 10, but you shouldn't really rely on that. If you ever do accidentally lock out a cycle, then remember the task manager and edserve.exe. Okay, so back to David.
Okay, cheers, Mike. So we just all we've done there is switch off the customize mode. As I say, you need to do that, or otherwise it'll keep popping up after every cycle you create. So that's an easy way of kind of customizing the interface a little bit. But if you want to take it a step further, what we can do is create some masks. So I'm just going to create a new cycle here, profile mill, and you should be able to hover over any of these modifiers and customize each and every one of them. Yeah, and if you look in the little sort of burger icon up in the top right there, that has a list of previously customized interfaces, I suppose. So I can always go back to the standard. It should come back up, and that is out of the box, if you like. So that's your standard interface. So if I want to customize something, just right click on the modifier, customize it. You can see this is for compensation. So I now get the chance to define the compensation I need to use. So I can say apply. And as Mike said earlier, you can also switch it off. So you know it's going to be set to use geometry every time. And if that's what you want every time, just switch it off so you don't even see it. And then apply. Say OK. Then I get asked if I want to save it. So I'm just going to save it as number 3 so I don't end up with too many. Save the mask. It already exists. It's OK. Yeah, so next time I go into the profile milling, it should now have no compensation visible, but I know that it's set to geometry in the background. And like you say, you can always go back to the standard as and when you require. But I just change something else, so if I always want to put a comment in there, and whatever that comment might be, I can apply and OK. So rather than this time saving as a mask, what I can do is also save this new cycle, if you like, to the ribbon. So I could give it a new name, you know, profile with comments, whatever, and this can be now added to my ribbon. So say OK, overwrite that. And I want to create a new tab on my ribbon toolbar as well. So in here I'm going to create a new tab, call it extras. Okay, I do have to create panels within that tab, so this could be something along the lines of machining, can't spell. Okay, and then I can add my new profiling to that tab. So just click on the add button, that gets moved across, and you now see at the top of my screen I've got an extras tab with the new cycle on there. So that should open up with them customized modifiers already visible or invisible as I've switched the compensation up. So yeah, so that's probably the easiest way of setting all your defaults as required. Right, and I think that's about it from me, so I'll pass back to Michael. Have you had any questions, Michael?
Yeah, there's just a couple coming in. Just the one that's kind of jumps out of us is edgeserve.exe. Yeah, didn't know about that. That's really useful. Someone's just mentioned about when they've done the ribbon, they don't see the extras, or they don't see the changes being made. And I think that's because what you've not done is you've not saved it up as a theme. So, and it's interesting that you haven't seen that, because you should always get prompted when you leave Edgecam. There will be a question saying, do you wish to save the theme? So maybe you're not saving the theme. And clearly, David, this morning people are definitely awake, because someone's just said that they've tried and do your customization as you showed us, and they're not able to actually do it. And I think that's actually to do with your license. So to be able, every Edgecam user should be able to do this customize modifier. And if you're noticing now that you just try this on your kit and you're not seeing that, I think that's actually because on your license you need to have what's it called, advanced customization on your license. It's not a cost item, it's just something that we need to place onto your license. So maybe that's been overlooked when your licenses were installed, or maybe if you're on a network license you forgot to add that on the network. But yeah, just have a look out for that. It's called advanced customization, and if you don't seem to possess it, then just contact your local salespeople, and they'll just simply add that for free, which is always a nice word. It's always for free. And again, they are quite awake today. Someone did just mention that does David know about how to set up coordinates the small way? Which I think they mean that, yeah, you can press the more tab. So our beloved listeners are sending us tips and tricks now, but I think actually this is the way that Edgecam comes out of the box, and maybe we leave it there. But for sure, when we are working at the coalface, as it were, yeah, we would go for the smaller box. But yeah, it does prove that you're all awake, and that's nice. So if we go back to the PowerPoint, we're just on the final straight here now. What I would just like to talk about before we close is there's a lot of these tips and tricks and thousands of pieces of knowledge on the community forum, and this is something that you do have access to. So when we've done our user group meetings, when we do meet customers, some people have reported, I don't know about this forum. Well, really, there's no excuse. It is on your portal. I've just highlighted it there on the right hand side. Notice all the nice new branding, and all you need to do is just click that customer forum and it will register. You may get a message about is it Windows and cookies or something like that. You just need to accept it. So maybe you've tried it in the past and been scared off by the Internet Explorer questions, but just accept it, and then we'll just open up the user forum and save some excellent information there that has been set down by my colleagues in the service department. So it's really worthwhile having a look through. It's not a substitute for the portal. Obviously, use the portal in the way you should use it, but the forum is a really nice discussion area. Okay, so finally, just a heads up and keep things in your diary. You may have heard the news that again, Hexagon Manufacturing Intelligence purchased Spring Technologies back end of last year, and that now means that we can now use NC Simul, which is crudely put back plotting software. So take any CNC program and you can check it inside NC Simulator. Some really cool stuff in there to optimize your tool path, to check the length of the tooling and optimize it. Also maybe to look at stock, just remembering Dave's demonstration in the simulator, so we can analyze stock more precisely inside the NC Simulator software. So and again, we're quite blessed with Edgecam that Edgecam has a link to NC Simul, which will automatically carry the fixtures and the stock and so on and so forth through to you. So a number of you I know saw that at the recent Southern Manufacturing Exhibition. So please, look out for an email which will announce the NC Simul webinars. And that will be sometime mid to late March. And of course, we're all busy. Our developers are now working on Edgecam 2020. Now don't worry, you've not missed the release. What happened to 2019 R2? So we're going to change to a different numbering format. So it will be called 2020. I'm sure there's some jokes to be made there about glasses, George Benson, I don't know, but yeah, so look out for that. And again, that should be released sometime around April, May time, and again we'll announce that through that. So again, let me reiterate, we will have recorded this and placed it up on the forum. We mentioned the forum, the customer community forum, so you'll be able to get to this webinar later as it's been recorded. I'd like to thank David, some excellent demonstrations. Thanks, David. And thank everybody out there for attending today. Wish you all a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you all in March time. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for your attendance. Bye.